Maybe I need to know. Are you alive?
Greetings, bienvenue, come on in, sit on down. The year was 2016 when we were first introduced to the Duffer Brothers' latest, greatest, and weirdest project to date, that being Stranger Things, that dropped and really put Netflix streaming back on the map after a couple years of kind of falling off with other streaming services coming in to compare and contrast, and most people moving away. Stranger Things really pulled audiences back together into the Netflix algorithm, and the Duffer Brothers are very much to thank. In fact, it wasn't long until we got our next season of this bizarre series. And then even so, it felt like we were really hitting a structure of waiting 2 years in between seasons. But here we are, 9 years later, anticipating the 5th and final season of the show. It's kind of bittersweet, leaving this intense and amazing world that's been created throughout this show, but also getting to wrap and finally understand so many secrets that have been hidden in plain sight all the while. This show has more people theorizing about what each individual thing means than any other, as far as I can tell, and I, as a person who hasn't seen it yet at the time of this recording, am pumped to finally figure out what's going on with this 80s nostalgia that got so many people into the ideas of D&D and nerd culture. So, without much further ado, and speaking of nerd culture, let's turn some of these characters into Pokémon. Let's get started. Hi, I'm the Thesterninator, but my friends call me Stern. Welcome to the channel. While you're here, don't forget to drop down below, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff that makes me and YouTube happy, and you are like Papa. Before we start in, I want to thank the incredibly talented Professor Brenner for collaborating on this Pokemon study. His work over at has been monumental in understanding these exciting new Pokemon. And hey, he even brought along his very off-putting star pupil to sit in on the research. You are a gaunt young man, and your presence is upsetting to me. For the first design, I really wanted to jump into one of the monsters that I really love. And the reason that I love them is because they are terrifying and I am scared of them. You know, it's like they say, if you love something, let it go. If it loves you back, then it will return and devour Bob in a hospital floor. So, with this design for the Demodogs, I really wanted to capture something that both felt loyal and friendly, as well as really fitting that terrifying demon type of energy. After all, we're kind of first introduced to companionship with the Demodogs through Dustin and his little demi-slug, Dart, and watching it grow and change and the evolution and metamorphosis of these types of monsters was really cool to see, actually. It provided a whole new layer to how we understand or have a lack of understanding about these creatures. So for the design, I wanted it to feel very dog-like, very loyal, very smooth, and very rounded in shape, something that felt friendly, but still had some points of contention to it, these sharpened angles. So balancing out how I wanted to do this was kind of the difficult part. I decided that I wanted the head to feel smooth, as if it could open and peel forth, much like we see the Demodogs and Demogorgon do, but I wanted the back end to have this type of motion to the line work that felt sharp and angular, while also introducing the idea of speed into these monstrosities. I really like the Demodogs, and the biggest reason why is because we got to understand the Demogorgon so well in Season 1 that getting to see something that takes that humanistic behavior, what little that the Demogorgon had, and turn it into a feral, instinct-led creature was off-putting. I mean, you get this monster and you come to understand it and what it is and what it can do, only to have that turned on its head with something that looks eerily similar. I dig that. Such a cool way that the show has handled horror. So here is our Demodog. Yeah, I kept the name very much the same because it means something. Demi meaning partial or half, and dog meaning dog. So for this half dog creature really emphasizes what it is, as well as being kind of associated to the Demogorgon itself. For the shiny, I went with a different style of horror. Less body color and body texture like organs and muscle and skin, more so like that albinistic white color, that very placid type of feel with those yellow glowing eyes that we see making much more appearances in modern horror.
Demodog, the minion Pokemon. This Pokemon was discovered by a young boy from a far-off region. It's theorized that they hail from an alternate world, similar to the Distortion Realm. While loyal to their trainers, in large packs, this Pokemon can become fearsome and territorial.
But moving right along, we can't talk about Stranger Things without the most iconic monster that it has brought to us. That being the Demogorgon, which, fun fact, looks nothing like the Demogorgon from D&D that it was named after. This thing doesn't have tentacles for arms or two bestial heads. No, it's kind of weird how they were able to translate the name and breathe a new life into this creature with that name. I mean, you ask anyone on the street what a Demogorgon is and they're gonna tell you it's a big skeletal monster man-looking thing with a flower head. They're not gonna tell you, oh, you mean the one from D&D? So this is such a really cool way that language evolves and moves, and I dig that. When I was in college for the short stint that I had there, I was actually studying English and wanting to learn about the history and the evolution of the English language. So getting to see it take part in this world was really exciting and really cool, because I'm a nerd, a word nerd. So playing into that idea with the design, I really wanted to get what we see of the Demogorgon and simplify it. Because while Pokemon is able to attach itself to other franchises pretty well, like we've seen with Tyranitar and Godzilla as an example, here we are going from something that is very body horror-esque into something that needs to feel, at the very least, UB, Ultra Beastie. So it was a little bit more of a challenge here, trying to find ways to translate that over. I ended up looking at more human builds type of Pokemon, those being like Machamp, Gardevoir, and Lopunny, for obvious reasons. But then again, I do always just have images of those Pokemon readily available. So here, I wanted to bring in that human factor while still allowing the head to compensate for that Pokemon and animalistic type of integrity that we wanted to maintain in the design. And I'm hoping it worked. Let me know down in the comments. And hey, while you're there, consider helping me out a little bit. You see, whenever I do these designs, I can do the stats, I can do the look, I can do the shiny, but I suck at abilities. So that's where I lean on you guys. Let me know down in the comments what abilities you think this Pokemon, the previous one, and the ones to come should have. I'm always eager to hear what you guys come up with, because honestly, in that department, you guys are a lot more creative than I am. So yeah, let's see what we got. So this is Pseudemic. The name comes from pseudo and pandemic, really attaching itself to the idea of how the Upside Down wants to grow into our current world. So I wanted to really amplify the idea of infection. That in itself is terrifying and builds into horror story. And so getting to see how the Upside Down is overgrown in so many different ways and seeing that want to leach into our world really played into the name here. Of course, I went for a dark fighting type, given the existence within the Upside Down and the physical manifestation of this creature. While there's a lot of psychic things that happen throughout the show, the Demogorgon is raw instinct, and I really wanted to capture that here.
Pseudemic, the minion Pokemon. These Pokemon are believed to be the primary inhabitants of an alternate world. While they may appear very human at a distance, their actions are feral and act presumably on sheer instinct.
With these two types of Pokemon now well understood, we can venture even further into this bizarre and upside down universe, obviously making sure to take ample precaution as we... Wait, Star Pupil, what are you doing? You can't go into the portal, it's not stable. No, little German boy, don't go into the upside down world. So yeah, we can't move forward without talking about Vecna, this big, bad avatar of the Upside Down that we were introduced to in Season 4, that really restructured what the show was, turning it from this sci-fi thriller into a mystery, a true horror within this new season. And Vecna as an avatar of this world, one who was at one point human, transformed into something undead, something not even truly alive anymore, and working at the will of hate as well as the will of this alternate dimension. That is a beautiful and magical thing that we get to experience. So Vecna has obviously permeated his way into various forms across various media, but His start and origin was with Dungeons & Dragons, where we were actually introduced to Vecna prior to fully meeting the character. Let me explain. We were introduced to the idea of Vecna through the eye, through the hand, through these various relics and parts of this undead lich creature. And ultimately, through those pieces and parts, we come to understand and finally take on the character of Vecna. Very similar to what we see happening in Stranger Things, uncovering these minions and these legions that he utilizes and houses within the Upside Down to eventually come into contact with the character itself. This other side of the coin to 11, while we've come to understand her power, who she is, and where she came from, Season 4 did all of that within a single season for this character who is the antithesis to our main attraction, and that is super cool, even doing so while still presenting us with a number of mysteries, ones that hopefully will be answered in this Season 5, because while Vecna is cool, while 11 is really awesome, and while the story that we've come to know and love is beautiful, there's still more that must happen. There are answers not yet answered. There are characters who we still wonder if they'll make it out alive. And with this time gap that's happened between Season 4 and 5, which is equal to what we had between Seasons 3 and 4, we have to wonder what kind of world we're gonna be walking into. I'm excited as well as terrified for what's going to happen here. How the Duffer Brothers are going to wrap up this show in a big, beautiful bow as what we've been hoping and expecting. But I want to talk a little bit about the design here. For the design of this Pokemon, I really wanted to go with that body horror type of idea, infection playing a big role here. So I drew in the idea of these pustules across the body, whereas the skin of this creature, whatever it was prior, is now turned into this wrap and cloak, almost falling off, all flowing towards that big master hand that we see there. I wanted to play into the ideas of Vecna without doing the full one-to-one design of the character, and I feel like I was able to accomplish something that at the very least I can say that I'm proud of. So let me know what you think down in the comments. So this is Vecna. I dig this thing so much. I feel like it's very different from the typical designs that I go for, and I was able to experiment with a lot of different and new systems for how I wanted to shade, color, and highlight this look, and ultimately I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. Even using that darker blackish color for the shiny and turning a lot of those reds into more bluish highlights worked wonders in making this thing feel evil. I was genuinely concerned whether I should use the regular or the shiny for the regular or shiny, you know, swap them around.
Vecna, the master Pokemon. This Pokemon was seemingly born of an unknown and alien DNA, using a human body as a host. Its power is capable of infecting the minds of those around it, and growing this upside-down domain.
Hey, real quick, I don't want to interrupt, but just want to let you know that about 69% of you guys aren't subscribed. So if you're watching and enjoying the content, make sure to drop below and subscribe to the channel so that you can be alerted every time that I make a new video. We've got all sorts of stuff going on, whether that be podcasts, franchise crossovers, or just weird mishmash card pack opening style videos. All sorts of weird stuff, whatever crosses my mind. And while subscribing means a lot and does a lot for me, I'm hoping it does a lot for you too, in ensuring that you can be alerted whenever one of these weird types of thoughts for a video crosses my mind. I'm really excited for what's to come with this channel as we move into 2026, and I really hope that you're there. So without much further ado, let's get right back to the video. We have one more monster that I want to touch on today, and that of course is the Mind Flayer, one of the larger enemies that we'd encountered throughout the series, and I mean that in a number of ways. One, it is the physically biggest monster that exists within the Stranger Things universe. The other is that it has existed across multiple seasons. Whereas in Season 1 we faced off against the Demogorgon, in Season 2 we faced off more so against the Demodogs and other Legion type creatures, here we see the Mind Flayer taking full fruition in Season 3 and being overtaken in Season 4 by Vecna, as it is uncovered that Vecna created this creature, created the Mind Flayer out of the idea of a predator and prey dynamic. Being obsessed with spiders and creatures of the same nature, Vecna created something that could in totality physically encompass his passion for what it is to be a predator. So there's a lot going on, and it was one that really challenged me on the design aspect, because the Mind Flayer, as we do know what it looks like, is truly a concept incarnate. It is a physical manifestation of an idea, and intended to be almost a faux god of the Upside Down. So for the design, I went in with that same type of mentality. I went in thinking, what could we utilize for this faux god, this idea incarnate, this concept brought into physical form? Well, I decided to jump to a Pokemon that actually already exists, that being Arceus, the creator of the Pokemon universe. And so, if we're going to be looking at the opposite end, this upside down variation of this Pokemon, why would we not look at something that already kind of fits a lot of that build? So I took Arceus and tried to transform it into a much more bestial form, tried to turn it into a living nightmare, bringing some components of Darkrai into the design, but ultimately fixing myself to say, I want to maintain the silhouette, the iconic shape of the Mind Flayer. That was my primary goal in this design. And luckily, Arceus' head, as well as Darkrai's, actually already fit the idea of the Mind Flayer's head. The rest came down to how we wanted to structure the body. It felt like the only way to do that would be to make this hodgepodge mishmash of parts. And luckily for us, that's kind of what the Mind Flayer is. It is this unholy abomination of pieces brought together, a child's drawing brought into a physical form. So much as I would suggest to any person trying to do creature design or monster design, feel free to go wild, because that ended up being the solution to this problem. What if it is a mishmash? What if it is bringing all of these pieces that seem to not go together, and then formulating why it makes sense later? I decided that I wanted to utilize the head of Arceus, but just kind of twisted and bastardized in a couple different areas here. Rather than the ring that floats around Arceus' torso, I would create this structure, almost a straitjacket, made of metal and steel that would hold the pieces together. The body itself would become this long serpentine figure with legs similar to Palkia's and Dialga's, and then we would have the arms to really solidify out the silhouette of the Mind Flayer, continue on as these shadowy tentacles. I looked at Pokemon like Dragapult and how the tail wisps into nothing as an example of how to use these tentacles in a way that felt natural but also unnatural. Ultimately, I mushed a bunch of things together, and that was purposeful, that was ideal for the design, and it comes out in a way that I think really fits that iconic silhouette of the Mind Flayer, while having a little bit of story of this false godhood, of this predator and prey dynamic, of this great dragon in the sky that you hear about in so many mythologies, all to create something that is meant to encompass the idea of a nightmare. So this is Diadoom, a combination of the term diadem, meaning an ornate crown, and doom. I ended up switching out the shiny and the normal color scheme, because as I was working, I ended up stepping away, coming back, and realizing I like the scheme of that blue and gold, but it really seems to not fit specifically what I'm going for. So I kept it for the shiny, but moved over to this reddish color, which I think fits a little bit better for the main design. I went with a poison dragon type to encompass and elaborate on the idea of this thing being this powerful deity-like structure, as well as having that pandemic and infection type of idea still surrounding it. And as you can see, it takes a lot more inspiration from Arceus than I think any of us would have ever hoped for.
Diadoom, the puppeteer Pokemon. While it is well understood that Arceus created our Pokemon world, this devastating creature seems to be the god Pokemon of their own twisted world, using their power and influence to adapt other nearby universes and infect them with parasitic spores that bring further dimensions under its domain. While it wears the guise of a god, it is strongly believed that this puppeteer has strings of its own.
So who is your favorite? Who are you adding onto the team? Let me know down in the comments below. And hey, before you get all the way down there, consider supporting the channel. You can find those links down in the description below, like our Patreon members, people who get access to high-resolution images to videos like this, getting to see kind of all the weird little guffaws and hidden secrets within each of these drawings, as well as other tiers, getting access to the actual Photoshop files for these designs. It's really cool and something that I always want to give back to the art community. community and allowing you guys to learn and understand at least the process that I go through with making this stuff. Or maybe you're just a person who really wants to chill, relax, and talk about other creators. A good opportunity for that is our YouTube members. Over there, you get access to videos early, as well as the opportunity to submit your questions into our Stern Conversations podcast. We've had some amazing people come through this year, and I'm excited for some people who are already lined up for next year. So hop into that so that you can have access to asking those questions and getting them answered on those podcasts. We have merch down below, a Discord that I'm sure you're already a part of, where we talk about everything nerdy under the sun. But with all that said, it sounds like you know where to find me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. I was kind of hoping that my phone would actually ring during recording, because my ringtone for at least the past 8 years has been the Stranger Things theme song. And I was like, how apropos would it be? How perfect would that be?